Good afternoon and welcome everybody. I'll give it a few more seconds until everybody pops in. And this is the last time I have to say this today. I'm so excited. I'm sure you all will be as well. Please make sure that you have your first and last name listed in the participant list so that we can accurately report continuing ed credits. I know for many, if you're logged in through a work account, it will default to your firm or organization's name and not yours. So I can't give you those really valuable CEUs for being here today. So if you can't figure out how to change your name, you can chat directly to AIA Pittsburgh and let me know what your first and last name is, and we'll make sure you get credit for being here. And with that, I would like to introduce Michael Brunner with Case Technologies. Case Tech is a sponsor of today's session. And with that, I will hand it over to you, Michael.
Great, thank you, Kiera. Appreciate it very much. Look forward to working with your team in today's event, today's presentation. So yeah, basically, my name is Michael Brunner. Like she said, I'm with Case Technologies. Primary focus of Case Technologies is as an Autodesk value-added reseller, working with the architectural community in Pittsburgh. We've been around actually for 30 plus years. I've been here for about 18 of those, so I'm proud to say that. We are a proud sponsor over the past, probably, maybe with the exception of last year with the pandemic, probably about 15 years in running. As a sponsor for Build Pittsburgh, so that's very excited to be part of that, part of this event. So, and some of the things that we offer, just so you have an idea, AutoCAD, of course, all you familiar with that, Revit, cloud solutions related to BIM Collaborator, BIM 360 Design, things like that. And as things are evolving and changing in this industry for the AEC community, things like cloud, you probably hear a lot of cloud. Oh my God, what is cloud? My goodness, how do I adapt to that? SaaS, software as a service. That's what we're here to help answer for you. So really, not to just sell your products, but to give you some insight, services, implementation support on your technology as it relates to your design world. So in addition to that, we are also involved with scanning. So some of you may be familiar with scanning technologies, such as Leica Geosystems. And really what that entails is if you have an as-built or a building you want to capture that type of data, we can do that for you as a service, as well as sell you the technology, the tools to help you work through that process. So as an example, you might get a building, maybe it's a 10,000 square foot building, and you want to capture in a point cloud. Well, we can capture that point cloud for you, give you that data, or give it to in a DWG format or a Revit model. So keep that in mind when you're planning your design work, okay? The other thing we are proud to say we've been involved with over the years with this scanning technology is we worked with in Volterra, Italy, and our director of services, many of you know him as Mark Dietrich. Proud to say that we've involved ourselves with this 3,000-year-old Etruscan village where we basically scanned the entire area, recreated the model, and we're doing that as point clouds into Revit and to AutoCAD, and maintaining this data, the data integrity, because it's obviously is that type of age of a space. Its deterioration is there, so we're trying to capture that data, and people can virtually be part of that equation by like a walkthrough. That's pretty cool stuff. So if anybody ever wants to have any insight on how that works, you can go to our site at casetech.com and also talk to Mark Dietrich about it. He'd welcome your invitation, your excitement about that project. So, and lastly, the other thing we're involved with is the technology surrounding your design software. So things like Lenovo workstation class laptops, infrastructure around that, virtual desktop infrastructure. So if you have any questions about how that works in the AEC world, please reach out. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Andrew and Cassandra. But thank you very much, Kiera. Thanks for allowing me to sponsor, and everyone have a great presentation. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. Give me a thumbs up if you can see our screen. Wonderful. We are honored to present before you. We want to thank AIA Pittsburgh and AIA's Pittsburgh Education Committee for inviting us to participate. Today, our presentation will focus on design leadership opportunities that advance your personal and professional development. These include design competitions, charrettes, workshops, and other pathways. In this session, we want you to discover how these opportunities can enhance the design leadership skills within yourself, your organization, and your community. But first, a few introductions. My name is Andrew R. I am a graduate of Penn State and a project designer at IKM Architecture. IKM is a cross-disciplinary planning and design studio in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Cleveland, Ohio. It is a 54-person design studio and was named the largest Pittsburgh area architecture studio by the Pittsburgh Business Times. Throughout my professional career, I have acquired a diverse portfolio spanning healthcare, community, and workplace disciplines. My research interests are in Antarctic architecture, embassy design, territory border conditions, and healthcare. At IKM, I guide the Design Charrette cohort. This cohort is a laboratory used to advance unique design ideas, skills, and portfolios for all our staff. It consists of internal office charrettes that advance our staff's design fabrication skills, request for proposal charrettes that showcase a design process unique to IKM, and external charrettes that help us win regional and national project work. Today, I'm excited to share some of those things with you. But first, I'd like to have my partner and co-host introduce herself.
Thank you, Andrew. My name is Cassandra Osterman. I am a registered architect and associate at Perfido, Weiskopf, Wagstaff, and Gettle. My core focus is affordable multifamily housing and adaptive reuse. I am a graduate of the Bartlett School at University College of London, where I earned my Master's of Architecture and Historic Urban Environments, and of CMU, where I earned my Bachelor of Architecture degree. I am also the 2021 Pittsburgh Young Architects Forum Chair, and I have been actively involved in the YAF board for more or less 3 years now. As a board member, I have spent most of my time focused on mentorship initiatives, and I've worked with a great committee, to create multiple years of the Young Architects Studio Competition, which is hosted annually leading up to Design Pittsburgh. So I've laid the groundwork for these competitions, and since graduating from CMU, I've submitted several project proposals for competitions here and outside the US. I've lived in the city of Pittsburgh for more or less 10 years, and I've had a chance to experience when designers engage with communities, from being on the neighbor's side of the table to being on the architect's side of the table proposing a project. So today our goal is to share some of our firsthand experience curating design leadership opportunities in and out of the office, speaking to competitions, charrettes, and workshops, and how to make the most of these opportunities as a participant and as a citizen architect. So Andrew, take it away.
All right, thank you, Cassandra. Again, we are honored to present before you and welcome you to this afternoon session. I'm sure it's been a long day for a lot of you. Today, Cassandra and I will help define what design leadership is. We will also help you navigate the motivation, mindset, and momentum to participate in design opportunities, create your own design opportunities, generate new time management habits, market design opportunities in your portfolio, grow your creativity, knowledge, and experience, guide your organization or community design culture, and apply design leadership strategies throughout your team. Ready? Let's get started. First, design leadership is a process. It is not a position. Design leadership is a verb, not a noun. It is an activity, a movement, a daily practice. We really want to communicate this to you because these ideas will help lay the foundation for the pathways of competitions, charrettes, and workshops we will talk about later in this session. Design leaders deal with people and their dynamics, which continually change. They are never static. The challenge of a design leader is creating change and generating growth in yourself, your organization, and your community. That requires movement, which, as you will soon hear, is essential for personal and professional growth. So throughout this presentation, we want to encourage you to first focus on your strengths. I'm sure you're good at some stuff. I'm sure you're good at not so other stuff. I am great at soccer. I would never want you to put me on the football field. So I focus on the stuff I'm good at. We're going to encourage you to also focus on the stuff you're good at because you have the potential to become great if you develop the design strengths you are already good at. Second, we want you to focus on today because it does not matter whether yesterday or this morning was good or bad. That is over. And we cannot change the past, but as designers, we can greatly influence the present. So we want to encourage you to take care of today and understand that tomorrow will take care of itself. Third and finally, we want you to focus on your priorities. You each joined this session because there was something original that spoke to you and you hope to take away from our conversation. I want to share with you the Pareto principle. Have you heard of it? It's the 20-80 rule. 20% of your activities will account for 80% of your results. 20% of your design activities will account for 80% of your design results. That's critical. That is the secret, we believe, to achieving more design with less. So today, we want you to evaluate your priorities. And as we go through our presentation, ask yourself, what is required for design leadership? What is the return in design leadership? And what is the reward in design leadership? These actions are just some of the things that make design leadership a verb. But design leadership is also a mindset. It is a teachable mindset. Neither wealth, notoriety, place, nor power are measures of a successful design leader. The only measure of success is the ratio between what we might have been and what we can become. That is the teachable mindset. The moment you stop learning is the moment you stop leading. And as a design leader, we want you to understand how much there still is to learn, even when you may be considered an expert by others. This mindset is a choice, and every design begins with a choice. Choices are at the root of each of our results, each of our final destination. Choose poorly, and you may find yourself back at the drawing board, forced to make new, often harder design choices. Don't choose at all, and you've made the choice to be a passive receiver of whatever comes your way, or whatever the client decides to request of you at the last minute. In essence, you make your choices, and then your choices make you. So today we want you to choose to ask questions of us that will help you grow, to grab pencil, pen, and paper and take notes on what you have learned, and share what you have learned with others in your organizations and your community. Let's talk about how design leadership is also motivation, not just any motivation, but consistent motivation. It does not matter how talented you are. It does not matter how many opportunities you receive. If you want to grow personally and professionally, consistent motivation is key. What motivates you? Really, what motivates you? Are you motivated by your goals or your growth? This is an investment question. A question that has been asked through the ages. Consider the investment in some of the world's greatest achievements. It took 26 months to build the Eiffel Tower. It took Da Vinci 4 years to paint the Mona Lisa. And it took around 30 years to build the Great Pyramid. Consistent motivation is the investment that separates good design leaders from great design leaders. Consistent motivation helps design leaders to show up every day, keep improving and never settle, follow through with excellence, accomplish more than expected. I love this quote by Michael Jordan. He once said that some people want it to happen, some people wish it would happen, and others make it happen. Let's be the design leaders who make it happen. Motivation is also a key factor in developing momentum. This is the final key to understanding what a design leader is. You remember your high school physics class, don't you? You will recall Newton's first law. It's also known as the law of inertia. Objects at rest tend to stay at rest unless acted upon by an outside force, and objects in motion tend to stay in motion unless something stops their momentum. Design leaders, people who get into a successful rhythm, continue busting their butts and end up achieving more and more. But how do we get momentum? Well, we have to build up to it. We have to get into the groove. We have to get into the zone by doing some of the things we have already covered. First, make choices based on your design goals. Second, repeat those choices to establish daily design disciplines. Third, build routines into your daily design disciplines. And fourth, stay consistent with your mindset, motivation, and momentum. Folks, it is not easy to build momentum, but once you do, look out. Nothing will stop you. Remember, a good design leader sustains momentum. A great design leader increases it. So keep pushing forward. This concludes the first part of our session. Part 2 of our session will focus on the 3 pathways to design leadership. That is in yourself, in your organization, and in your community. These are professional opportunities for growth. In part 1, we have just discussed personal opportunities for growth. Understanding the personal opportunities for growth, the mindset, momentum, and motivation encompasses what we are calling the attitude of the design leader. Because your attitude determines your actions, and your actions determine your results. Folks, you must know yourself before you grow yourself. So let's grow ourselves. We can either do that through ourselves by participating or planning in design competitions, through our organization by participating or planning in design charrettes, or through our community by participating and planning in design workshops. Up first, design leadership in yourself. This is a level of design leadership that can be done alone. And by that, I mean, you do not have to rely on others to present this opportunity to you. There is no gatekeeper putting restrictions in your way. If you want to enter a design competition, you can do that. And through doing that, we believe you will be able to establish personal leadership and credibility within yourself. This is level 1 of our 3 pathways. And the biggest thing I want to share with you on this pathway is to make it your masterpiece. Make every day your masterpiece. Just as John Wooden was known for daily excellence in his players, he emphasized work ethic, and through that received undefeated seasons and countless NBA championships. Cassandra is going to talk to you more about design competitions. Cassandra?
Thank you, Andrew. So one of the best examples and best ways that you can grow in the scope of personal design leadership is design competitions. These are opportunities where you can submit a proposal, typically through professional collectives or trade networks. So it is worth stating, how do you make the most of these opportunities and what do you gain from them? So for one, it's a chance to build a portfolio. When you're applying for a job or perhaps graduate school, I've found that these projects are really helpful in setting you apart. It speaks to your personal interest, a project you chose to explore. It's distinct from the work you might be doing at your firm or as part of a team at your firm. I often found in documenting work that you do at the firm, sometimes you can be limited in what you can share publicly, or maybe you worked on things like details, construction drawings, and you may run into issues where what you're working on isn't as graphically interesting when you're putting together a portfolio. Whereas those competition entries with that high quality rendering or perspective can really stand out on the page, and is a great reason to be working towards that portfolio. Competing is also an exercise of branding. It's kind of a great way to get your name out there. It cements your experience and your interest in a field within architecture. For instance, if you care about issues of air pollution, then find ways of talking about air pollution in the projects and the submissions you put together. Competitions give you a chance to tackle a problem and earnestly propose a solution. Oftentimes, projects are built around real projects or real places. For example, the Young Architect Studio competition from 2019 was focused on the Bloomfield SureSave site because there was this active conversation about the sale of that property and community discussion around its redevelopment at that time. In competitions, the judging panels are often including community stakeholders or the architects who are actually working on that real project. That means that your ideas have value. You might inspire, you might have someone think about a project or an aspect of the site in a way that they hadn't noticed before. Be clear about your personal objectives. Is it your objective to win? Is it to create a portfolio piece? Is it really just having a chance to experiment and research and do something that interests you? Sometimes a competition is a great way to finally learn how to use that new rendering software or build a physical model again after you haven't for a long time, or read up on something in science and technology that you can then bring into other projects. So when I was working on my proposal for the Bayer Billboard, which is another Young Architect Studio competition a few years back, that gave me a chance to read up on apiaries and beekeeping, what's happening to bees, what makes a great bee habitat. Never would have had the opportunity to do that research except that it was part of the project. So finally, know which competitions serve you and your personal growth. If the timeline is too short, if it doesn't inspire passion, then I suggest moving along. If you want, save your time and spend it on the next project that excites you. All right, let's move on. So now you're in the position of creating, I'm sorry. So another way you can strengthen your personal design leadership, got ahead of myself. So another way you can strengthen your personal design leadership isn't necessarily just through architectural design competitions. It might actually be through public art proposals. So one such example locally in my case, it was the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust Art Bike Racks. So historically, every couple of years or so, the Cultural Trust has issued a call for entries to design a bike rack that will be fabricated and installed in downtown's cultural district. And I'm sure you've seen some of these as you walked around downtown. They're usually quite vibrant. So what's amazing about this kind of opportunity is that you have the option to fabricate it yourself, or you will be partnered with a fabricator who you get to work with and help produce the final piece. And that's what I elected to do. I had the privilege of having a proposal accepted a few years ago, and I'm happy to say that my bike rack is still standing on Penn Avenue right now. But the moral of the story is to be open to these kinds of opportunities. Know that not all opportunities come in the form of a formal architectural competition. And sometimes we can engage in placemaking through alternate pathways. So let's move on. So now you're in a position when you are perhaps creating a design competition. And there's some things you should maybe keep in mind to maximize the success in generating ideas and bringing attention to an important topic, and success in allowing the most people to engage in that process and have a fulfilling experience that contributes to their growth as a design leader. And for this, I'm going to use lots of examples from Young Architect Studio competitions, because each of these, as an annual event, has addressed the prompt and the project parameters very differently every year. So the simple explanation of good planning when it comes to design competitions is clearly identify the classic questions of who, what, when, where, why, and how. So let's define the who. Define the users and the client. Is it for the greater public? Is it a specific entity or an institution or a business? Be clear about who this project is for. If you're defining the what are the programmatic requirements or the broader goals? Is it about resiliency? Is it about equitability? Define the when. Is this set in today's circumstances, or is it explicitly set in a future timeline? Let's say 5 years down the road or 50 years down the road. Define the where. What are the site boundaries? To what degree do you have wiggle room? And we should clarify that the scale of the design inquiry is something to be determined. Are we looking for an urban design master planning exercise? Is it about an architectural proposal or detailed construction drawings? Or is it some combination of things? What kind of proposal are you looking for within a given site? So in the case of the 2019 SureSave redevelopment, that site was defined as the boundaries of that existing property. But if we look at another competition, let's say the 2018 Spark Temporary Parklets project, that was a definitive boundary of a standard street parking spot, but the spot was located anywhere that the participant wanted it to be. So it could be anywhere in the city. So next you want to define the why. Why is this critical? Why are we asking this specific design question right now? In 2016, the studio competition, which was Vision 2050, was a great example of this. It was a prompt centered around designing for resilience. It wasn't limited to a particular site beyond that it had to be in Pittsburgh, or even one particular issue like flooding or air pollution. It was capitalizing on the timing, because in 2014, Pittsburgh was selected as a member of 100 Resilient Cities, which made this a great opportunity to galvanize on the increased focus on Pittsburgh's sustainable future. And 100 Resilient Cities laid a very clear value proposition out. So lastly, let's define the how. How much time do participants have? Do they have weeks? Do they have days? Do they have hours? Are you giving them enough time to really engage? Do you want to give people enough time to engage? but also not so much time that they're going to ignore it and kind of say, I'll do that eventually. There's something to be said about having focused production time, as we all know, but if it's too little time, it may turn off potential participants. Okay, let's move on. All right, so So looking back at my experience, both as a participant and as an organizer of competitions, there are some key takeaways I just want to share with you. So generally prompts swing in one of two directions. They're either very, very broad and open-ended, or they're very precisely defined. So for example, that 2050 Vision 2050 project prompt was intentionally not site-specific, and it generated a wide range of solutions. Whereas if you look at, let's say, the 2015 Sign of the Times project, that was cited squarely at the Bayer billboard. And all the proposals had to address that very particular site, its materials, its unique context, but it still allowed a very vibrant range of proposals that ran from an apiary to a bathhouse. So secondly, if you're determining the deliverables for a competition, you have to strike a balance. How do you leave room for a participant to create the drawing or the model that best serves the project? And for instance, how are you going to be best understand the project? Are you giving enough room so that they can say, this is the drawing that helps communicate the project best? So how you do this is interesting because you also need to equalize. There might be a panel of judges and assessors who need to fairly assess one project beside another. So you have to toe the line between extremes. I generally endorse letting the participant choose what is the best tool for the job. So I like to say you're laying the guide rails, not fences. Now, conversely, it's on the participant to be clear about their thesis statement of design intent. They need to be clear about why they chose that site or that program or that scale when it's not being dictated to them. And the whole presentation of project, every drawing, every render needs to support that point. So the next thing is to be critical about the timeline. Again, ask, what are you trying to gain from the experience? What do you want your participants to gain from the experience? And lastly, from a planning standpoint, it is important to reflect on the competition in terms of equitability and making sure it's as equitable as possible. So often, if you can afford the time to spend working for free on a competition, or if you have access to the resources to compete, like having Photoshop or rendering software on your laptop, that is already a huge advantage. My point is to recognize that without offering incentives, such as stipends or access to resources, then you are already excluding a number of competitors, unfortunately. Now, truthfully, I've never encountered a stipend in a competition in the US, but I did while I was at my graduate program in London. And in that case, it was a call for entries for a donor wall in a campus courtyard. And the way that they made the stipend go as far as possible was that they had a general call for entries for a proposal of an idea. And then the top 10 selected finalists were awarded a stipend, plus 2 more months to add depth to the project, add further details and mock-ups. And the competition organizers basically recognized that students were they were choosing to spend time on this rather than, say, work that extra shift at that part-time job. And it was a way of making the playing field just a little bit more equitable. So with that, Andrew's going to tell us more about the design leadership within your organization. Andrew?
Okay, thank you, Cassandra. We're moving on to the second pathway now. This pathway is a level of design that can be done with others that you know. It is a pathway that you can build upon the credibility you establish by entering design competitions, and now establish reliability. We are calling this a social leadership opportunity because you are now engaging with others who know you and can demonstrate the reliability and credibility you have. We are going to be discussing this through planning and participating in design charrettes. And I want to share something critical about this pathway. And I want to share it to the emerging professional or the senior leader, the person who is starting at day 1 or year 10. See yourself as a leader now, because leadership is not an action. Leadership is an action, I should say. It's not a position. I think for some of us, there is a belief that leadership comes from having a title or position. And that is a major misconception for becoming a design leader. You do not need to possess the title or the position at the top of your organization to lead. Today, Just be in the mindset that you can take responsibility for creating growth in your organization. It can be small growth, it can be major growth, but growth is good and growth is what we need. At IKM, as I mentioned, I help facilitate our Design Charrette group. It's a group that helps our staff learn more design and fabrication skills and express design potential that they might not always have the opportunity to engage with in their day-to-day tasks. On the slide are just several of the competitions we have done in the past decade. I want to share some of the more recent ones with you and highlight the key themes we were hoping our staff to grow from engaging in. In 2018, we focused on designing a residence hall in the Pittsburgh region. We had a site model for a proposal that was just sitting around in our office. A lot of people were looking at it and proposing their own thoughts of what the building could have been or should have been. So we decided to have a design charrette of form-making, iterative form-making of buildings. And we were able, through that charrette, to teach 40% of our office how to 3D print. In 2019, we wanted to help our staff grow in their concept diagramming skills. We did a charrette called Drawing is a Verb. Essentially, we gave our staff a verb: to run, to slice, to build. And we asked them to make a 3-dimensional partie out of it. These lessons that they took away in 2019 are still being used today when our staff begins projects and are thinking about the concept. We've seen our graphic design quality increase tremendously by allocating time through these design charrettes. A few others we've done is given staff the opportunity to practice creating content for a proposal. Not often do everyone in the firm get a chance to focus on creating the proposal. Sometimes it's intimidating for emerging professionals to speak up and get that opportunity. So we wanted to create a safer zone with less risks for any staff member at IKM to practice, to succeed, and yes, even fail at creating a request for a proposal. And they took away a lot of lessons from that that are still being used today. And at IKM, we are seeing more staff engaging with our RFPs now because of something we did in 2019. Now, I will say the one thing we learned about in 2019 is that we are awful writers. We need work with our concept statements and narratives. So we decided to just have a charrette on that. Focus on your grammar, on your English. Try not to rely on Microsoft Word spell check so much. And let's just see who can produce the most eloquent narrative. And then right after that, the pandemic hit. And as we were all working from the comfort of our homes, we realized we needed a charrette to figure out how we can collaborate remotely, how we can use software differently, how we can communicate and connect better. We dedicated several weeks to figuring that out and integrated those things into our practice. And now in 2021, we're focusing on a charrette for sustainable design practices in design software. And as I've said and hinted at, everything we do in these charrettes is not siloed. We don't move on from them. We try to integrate them into our project work as much as we can. Let's talk a little bit about how we plan these design charrettes. There are many variables in developing an architectural design charrette, and it has spawned several types of charrettes. And there are several methodologies for what charrette you may want based on the end result or the result as it actually occurs. I'm calling these the project, the idea, the product, and the prototype. If you are focused on a project charrette, you are hoping to create the erection of the defined site. This is probably best for when you need to generate iterative forms for a building. The goal is to select the design solution that is judged in your organization to be the best. And if possible, incorporate the participants of that best design into the project moving forward, either as a consultant or a full-time member. Next, we have the idea. These competitions are held for the projects that are not intended to be built. These are the ones that forget about the budget burdens and code constraints and really try to unlock the potential that students were creating in studio in college. They are useful as explorations of significant design issues, but they are limited insofar as they stop short of realization. Nevertheless, these idea charrettes can stimulate interest in untried, unthought of possibility. The subjects for idea charrettes should be carefully chosen. Designers are likely to be wary of entering idea charrettes that promote or advance narrow interests that fail to benefit either the public or the profession, or whose benefits are limited because the ideas cannot be appealed or realized in a supportive group. There's also the product charrette, and these charrettes are generally sponsored by an outside source. Maybe you would like to partner with a client or an engineer you work with to promote a particular type or brand of building material, building system, or building idea. It's a way to create an informal conversation without the people you're working with feeling pressured at the ideas you're presenting. It brings everyone to the table in an informal and new manner. Now, designers might be reluctant to get involved in these type of charrettes because they frequently benefit less of them and more of the people you're trying to connect and communicate with. And that is just something you need to be clear with upfront and help your organization buy into the vision. If they buy into the vision that this will benefit us in the long run by communicating with the people who need it now most, they will be much more willing to engage in a product charrette. And finally, my favorite, the prototype charrette. These are the messy, the complicated, the gritty charrettes where you are just making what is on your mind. These charrettes are generally focused on developing a new skill or fabrication. Did you buy a 3D printer that you want your organization to learn how to use? This is the charrette for that. Laser cutter, new Photoshop or rendering software, consider using the prototype charrette and building a charrette around an idea that will allow your organization to practice learning the software that can then be integrated later. We've done this for 3D printing. We've done this for laser cutting. We've done this for hand model making. We've done this for rendering. We've done this for video rendering too. Those are the 4 that we implement at IKF. Now, there are a lot of themes and lessons we've learned from doing this. We've succeeded a lot and we've failed a lot. And it's important to admit that, recognize and acknowledge that your first charrette might not be successful, but success is in the eye of the beholder. And if you are able to pull away the things you want to continue doing and the things you want to improve upon, your next charrette will be even better. So do not give up if the results you thought you would receive were not what they came out to be. Here are some of the themes I also want to stress to you. When you're creating a charrette, communicate and connect with all participants. Be very open about the process you're thinking about. There is no need to create this in a silo. Usually what we do is send a message out either through email or Microsoft Teams and create a conversation through that, where everyone can see what we're thinking, everyone can understand our reasoning, and most importantly, everyone has an opportunity to buy into our vision for that charrette. And that we have seen encourages much more participation than when we do not do that. Second, market the submissions that you produce in this charrette on social media, in proposals, or portfolios. Do not let the work you have done just sit in a corner and be forgotten about in the next day, the next week, or the next month. There is a lot of opportunity to revisit and use the work you've created in these charrettes as a blast on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Instagram for all to see, in proposals to tell the story of your organization's process to a client, or in a portfolio where you're trying to get into a new market sector. Also, celebrate the work that your participants create with exhibitions and symposiums. Anytime we finish a charrette at IKM, we make sure to display the work proudly. We mat the work, we create model stands, we make sure the lighting is hitting it perfectly. And all truth, we try to make it look like an art gallery where we display it across the walls and we allow it to stay there for months. That allows everyone in our organization to see the work, be proud of the work, talk about the work, but it also allows anyone that we bring in outside of our organization to see it and get an indirect way of understanding what type of designs we do that we might not be showing just in that RFP they might be asking for. Next, arrange for winner in participant compensation. Everyone loves a good prize when they're entering a charrette. Some of the ones we have done include a $50 Amazon gift card to a full day of PTO. The reward you give to the participants should depend on the scale, time, and effort people are putting in. But if you make their work feel valued, they will return and continue to return anytime you want to do a charrette moving forward, and they will be more willing to give 110% if they know there is value at the end of the journey. And once you hit that end of the journey, once you finish that exhibition and symposia and gallery that you have had for months displaying models and artworks, make sure to return the models and drawings to the participants. Never throw them away. Always make sure they're able to hold on to it because they take a lot of pride in that work. Try your best not to damage it because the people in our firm who participated in a charrette in 2016 still display their models, their artworks, even the giant made-up check we gave them that said you had a free PTO at their desk. They're proud of that work, and we're proud that they are there to show it to everyone who walks by. And finally, make sure you establish an archive record to tell the charrette's story. I don't mean scan the work at the end. I mean take photos and documentation throughout the whole process. The photos do not have to be perfect. They just have to capture the story. Because when you want to revisit a charrette several years down the road, there's a lot of things you're going to forget. And having that record really brings back memories and allows you to clearly communicate the same thoughts you had years ago for the purpose you need today. So that was pathway number 2. We are now going to move on to our final pathway. This is the climax of our pathways. Once you have designed for yourself, once you have designed in your organization, we feel you are now ready to design in your community because this is a level of design that can be done with people you do not know, people you do not have credibility with. This is one where you are going to use the personal leadership and social leadership you developed in the previous pathways to develop a community leadership. You are going to be using the credibility and reliability you established in the previous pathways to establish integrity. This is critical anytime you work with a community member. And I want you to take away this thought that when you are working and designing in a community, to listen, that you see them, you hear them, and what they are telling you matters. So Cassandra's going to talk about how we design, how we participate, and how we plan workshops.
Thank you, Andrew. So one of the easiest ways that you can serve as a design leader in your community is to pay attention to what is happening in your community. Some of us may be familiar with being on the architect side of the table when it comes to community and planning meetings, presenting a proposal, people express their opinions, some more than others, and I recognize this does not always leave us feeling inspired. But I want to make the point that paying attention, taking note of when a community outreach meeting about that road reconfiguration, proposed redevelopment of the vacant corner lot, you name it, making that effort to participate can be a hugely rewarding experience. So one thing to consider is how you can be a helpful participant. I definitely don't suggest going to a planning meeting and grilling the presenters or brutally scrutinizing a proposal. That's no fun, but I do suggest you be critical. You have experience in this field. You may see something that no one else is seeing. So for example, I went to a meeting for the redevelopment of a grocery store a few years ago, and my eye was immediately drawn to the question of site access and how that was being addressed on the site. And I was wondering, do they know how many people traverse the site every day just to get through the neighborhood? Can pedestrians continue to cross the site safely once the project's complete? So I made sure to ask a question when they had the Q&A time. And not because I had a good solution, but I wanted to bring it up because I think that my community is better served by thinking about that issue, by saying, hey, is anyone thinking about this? So that someone else in the crowd says, oh yeah, you know what, I hadn't thought about that, but that does impact me. That will keep me, it'll keep me thinking about it going forward. Another valuable thing you can do is share what you learn. Share what you learned from being at that meeting. Often because of how a meeting is advertised or how it's scheduled at odd times when some people might be working or busy with childcare or who knows. There might not be enough people who are, or I should say, of all the people who are affected by a project, not all of them are going to be in the room to hear about the project. Or worse, they're going to learn about the rumor. They're going to learn about the project through the rumor mill, more or less. And unfortunately, that's how misinformation gets derived. So you have the unique ability to assess, to distill down the core components, and to be a liaison to advocate for your family and friends. So in the case of that grocery store project a few years ago, I actually went to that meeting, I took some photos, I took some notes, and I wrote up like a little summary, and I shared that with some close friends to let them know, hey, this is what's being proposed, here are the bullet points, here's what you should be paying attention to. And that was it. I just wanted to kind of say, hey, here, by the way, here's what's going on. So obviously check your bias, be honest, try not to unfairly skew someone else's opinion of the project based on your own opinion of the project. Just try to be honest about what you learned from that today. All right, let's move on. So another great way you can exercise design leadership in your community is through a design workshop or a charrette. And one very good example of this at a local level is the St. Peter and Paul Church in East Liberty. So this building is a distinct building in the East Liberty neighborhood. It's located on Larimer Avenue, and unfortunately, it's been more or less vacant since the mid-90s. There has been a push to find new life for this prominent building, in part because of a multi-million-dollar HUD grant for nearby mixed-income housing on the land surrounding the church, not to mention a new green space that was expected to be built across the street from the church. So riding the wave of renewed interest, LD, the East Liberty Development Incorporated, they organized a 2-day charrette in June 2019, where they invited a volunteer team of architects, planners, and designers to come listen to community leaders, tour the church building, and intensely study what was happening at the community level. What did the community need the most? What was happening at the site? And then with that knowledge, spending a day or so to quickly cobble together a design proposal. And the critical thing was the importance of listening. The majority of the time was spent listening to stakeholders and being responsive, not prescriptive, not judgmental, not coming in already knowing what to do. It was 2 days of intense, concentrated ideation, and it was built upon the input of stakeholders and neighbors. So this is just one example of this kind of opportunity, but I want to reinforce how much these opportunities can give to ourselves and give to the ones around us. So let's move on. So to drive home some of the key themes of design leadership in the community, here are some of the key points. Ask yourself, how do you serve as a citizen architect? How are you listening and staying informed? Can you broadcast critical details and help your neighbors feel engaged in shaping a place? How can you be a helpful participant? And is what you're doing being a helpful neighbor? And lastly, how can you serve as a collaborator? When you come into the table, are you being empathetic? Are you truly listening? How can you use your unique qualifications as a designer to help articulate a problem or design parameters for a project? So with that, I'll let Andrew bring us home. Andrew.
Okay, thank you, Cassandra. Folks, we have about 10 minutes left. As we conclude our presentation, we want to encourage you to ask any questions you might have in the chat. We are going to spend the remaining time of this presentation summarizing what we've already talked about and presenting some resources for you to take away in case you are ready to get engaged in a design competition, a design charrette, or a design workshop. As you know, there's design leadership in yourself, your organization, and your community. And we want you to understand that these paths help develop personal leadership, social leadership, and public leadership. They also help establish credibility, reliability, and integrity. But what makes it possible for a successful design leader? This is the last point we want to drive home, because we want to encourage you to find or increase your design passion today. Passion is what makes it possible for ordinary designers to achieve great things. Nothing can take the place of passion in a design leader's life. Vision without passion is a picture without possibilities. Passion sustains design excellence. Passion enhances your design creativity, knowledge, and experience. Passion transforms how you grow personally and professionally. Passion is what makes the impossible designs possible. While everybody can possess passion, not everyone takes the time to discover it. So today we want to encourage you to take the time to find or increase your design passion, because that will increase your ability for success. Here are a few questions to ask yourself. Are you taking the time to design? Are you growing as a design leader? Are you invested in your daily designs? Are you building on your design strengths? Are you designing what you enjoy most? If you answer no to some of those questions, it may be time to find or increase your passion again. If you said yes to any of those questions, we believe you are ready to enter onto any of the 3 pathways we have just discussed. We thank you for joining us for this presentation, and Cassandra is now going to take us home by presenting a few resources for you to use in your daily designs.
Thank you, Andrew. So in conclusion, we just want to leave you with a couple of resources to take with you at the end of today before we get into any questions, if we have time for that. So these are some resources at a national and international level for if you're looking for competitions like ArcNet or ArcDaily. We only have so many competitions that are hosted within our region. So absolutely keep an eye out and filter for more competitions and more opportunities beyond our area itself. And secondly, we found in working on this project and working on this presentation, we came across a really good thing called the AIA Handbook of Architecture and Design Competitions. It was written by the AIA's Committee on Design. It's a very, very clear resource, and it's particularly good if you are in a position where you're planning a competition or a shred. Take a look at it. It's really well done, and it's a really good read. We can move on to the next. So last notes on design leadership opportunities. We've talked about a lot of different kinds of design leadership today, but I want to just add that I represent the Young Architects Forum of Pittsburgh. I have the privilege of being the 2021 chair, and I just want to remind everyone of what we are striving to do and what we have reinforced in terms of our mission for this year. We are focused on supporting the professional development of young professionals, young architectural professionals in a holistic way. And how can we do that as holistically as possible? And how can we allow young professionals in our community to feel like they are part of a community and part of a regional network? So if these are issues or questions that you care deeply about and you want to take action on, please, by all means, come to it at the next YAF meeting. Keep an ear out for our monthly newsletters to stay informed. Beyond that, expect the Young Architect Studio competition to come out over the summer. That'll be a lot of fun. Again, if anything, I hope that we get a lot of people excited for doing that competition this year at a bare minimum. And then beyond that, always keep an eye out for the AIA Pittsburgh's Leadership Institute. It's a great opportunity, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It is an institute based on leadership, and you gain a lot through 9 or 10 sessions. So with that, we conclude today's discussion and open the floor up to questions and discussion. And thank you for your time.
I don't know that I have any questions because I came in a little late, but I think the content of what you produced is excellent. It's a good learning tool. And I appreciate the effort that you put into your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Any questions or comments otherwise for our presenters? Okay. Well, with that, I guess we will conclude today's session. This is the last session of Build Pittsburgh today. We do have one more event coming up in 15 minutes, our digital cocktail hour sponsored by RI Lampus. We have some fun in store. So we really hope that you'll go grab a cocktail or the ingredients and come join us in about 10-15 minutes. Thank you,
Okay.
everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you all.